Thanks for listening to 22 Hours, A Second Look. As you likely know by now, you'll find new content as part of this re-release at the end of the episode. And don't worry, there are no spoilers if you're listening through for the first time. After the show, I bring back Jack Moore and Julia Ziegler to help me pull back the curtain on how we created this podcast. We talk about the challenge of getting the transcripts from D.C. Superior Court and the editorial considerations that went into the decision to cast our colleagues to read them aloud. But first, here's episode 7, Cross. Previously on 22 Hours, An American Nightmare.
We begin with a rather big development from the trial of the suspected killer of the Savopoulos family and their housekeeper. That man took the stand in his own trial.
I mean, it's a perfect puzzle piece. It fits right in.
I know.
But the thing is, there's a way that makes me kind of suspicious of that.
You didn't know Ed died a year ago.
No, ma'am. I couldn't call Ed when I was locked up. Ed don't have a phone.
You had no idea.
No, ma'am.
It is being called a major crime scene as homicide investigators examine a house that caught fire in Northwest D.C.
The room is a crime scene.
They found 4 people, including a child, dead inside on the 2nd floor.
Right now, it does not appear that this was just a random crime.
I said, but what happened? They said, we don't know. They killed the whole family.
Police have said they believe more than one person is responsible for the crime.
A wide-reaching manhunt for Daron Wint, stretching all the way to New York City.
We had the DNA on a piece of crust. How did his DNA get into that house?
Got a package that I'm going to need you to bring down to me.
To do what he did to 4 people, including a 10-year-old boy, is just beyond words.
They were brutalized, and we saw the evidence of that.
The jury has just reached a verdict in the murder trial of Daron Wint.
He was going to strike the American dream just by committing murder and mayhem.
This is 22 Hours, An American Nightmare. Prosecutors said the reason that Sava, Amy, Philip Savopoulos, and Vera Figueroa were murdered was pure greed. Daron Wint wanted money, and he got it, $40,000. But if this crime was all about getting money, shouldn't there be evidence that Daron Wint planned it? There isn't any. It's one of those questions that has frustrated us through the trial and as we've worked on this podcast. Investigators pulled just about every search Daron Wint ever typed into his cell phone. We've already told you about some of those searches that took place after the murders. But before the murders, Daron's search history seems normal, to be honest. Searches for movies, TV shows, music, and cars. The spreadsheets of his searches were filled with queries for different kinds of luxury cars, like Audis, BMWs, Maseratis, Aston Martins, Range Rovers, Corvettes. And yes, Porsche 911 turbos. The same make and model of the car the Savopoulos owned. The same kind of car that was driven from their home after the murders and then later set on fire. Okay, so he searched for cars. But it's what he didn't search for that confounds us. Daron Wint never searched for the Savopoulos' address. He never searched for directions to 3201 Woodland Drive or even to the family's neighborhood. He never searched for American Iron Works, his old employer. In the months leading up to the murders, he never even searched the Savopoulos name. So, how did Daron know where they lived? Yes, he worked for Sava, but that was years ago. Ask yourself this. Do you know the street address of the CEO of your company? What about the company you worked for 10 years ago? There is nothing in Daron Wint's search history, nothing that we saw, that offers an answer. When Daron took the stand in his own defense, he didn't deny he was at the Savopoulos house in May 2015, but he had a simple explanation for how he got there. He never had to search for the address because he was taken there. Daron said on the morning of May 14th, hours before the Savopoulos' house went up in flames, his brother, Daron Wint, picked him up in a Porsche 911 Turbo and drove him to Woodland Drive. In this episode, we're going to continue to lay out for you what happened during Daron Wint's cross-examination, as prosecutor Laura Bach tried to poke holes in his testimony. Daron took the stand and said he wasn't anywhere near the family's house on May 13th, the day Amy, Sava, Philip Savopoulos, and Vera Figueroa were taken hostage. He said he was staying at a friend's house, at Ed's house. We later learned Ed wasn't going to be taking the stand to vouch for his alibi. Ed was dead, so he couldn't account for Daron's whereabouts during the 22 hours the victims were taken captive and then killed. We had to take Daron's word for it. Daron testified he left his phone in his minivan that he loaned to his brothers, so he was stuck at Ed's house waiting for Darrell to come back. That's the part of his story where we pick up Laura Bach's cross-examination.
So I guess at what point is it too late to just get on a bus and go home?
It was actually, I wouldn't say it was a point, but after the drinking, I fell asleep.
A reminder, these are not actually the voices of Laura Bach and Daron Wint. Our colleagues Lauren Larson and Claude Jennings are reading from the D.C. Superior Court transcript.
Right, the drinking. When did you start the drinking?
After close to 5 o'clock.
So around 5 o'clock, you just start drinking?
I know Darrell was on his way back soon because he said between 5 and 6. Figured by the time I finished the first drink, he would be outside.
So you take one drink of what?
It was vodka. I know it was white. I don't know exactly what kind of vodka it was.
So you sat there all day, right?
Yes, ma'am.
What'd you do?
After Ed would fix cars, we'd just outside and hang out and just talk.
So you're hanging out with Ed, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Outside?
And everybody else, yes, ma'am.
Well, who's everybody else?
All his friends comes and goes.
Who are they? Tell us who they are.
I don't know these people, ma'am.
So the only person you can remember is Ed, who's dead.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So you sit outside with Ed, and at 5 o'clock, you take a drink of vodka.
Yes, ma'am.
And then what happens?
And then we just have a conversation. I was waiting for Darrell to come back.
What are you guys talking about?
Talking about cars.
All right. You like cars, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You know a lot about cars, don't you?
I know a lot about them.
You wanted nice cars, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, nothing wrong with wanting nice cars, right?
No, ma'am.
Couldn't afford them, though, could you?
No, ma'am.
So Darrell doesn't come back. When do you start drinking some more?
I was just hanging out and drinking, waiting for Darrell, who was on his way back. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any idea what time you went to sleep?
No, ma'am. I just remember Ed telling me to lay on the couch for a minute.
And then it's one of those things where you doze off and you're kind of like, oh, goodness, I've been asleep for a couple of hours?
Yes, ma'am. I woke up and the place was kind of dark.
Okay, and that's around 1 in the morning, you thought?
It was after 1. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you knew that because why?
Because there's a big clock right there in the living room.
Sure, and then you go back to sleep?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and how long did you sleep that time?
I got back up around after 10 o'clock.
Prior to that, you didn't, hear anybody, kind of trying to wake you up or anything, right?
No, ma'am.
You didn't hear any loud, strange noises while you were sleeping?
No, ma'am. I didn't hear anything.
Okay, nothing unusual, right?
No, ma'am.
No gunshots or anything like that?
No, ma'am.
During this part of her cross, we weren't sure why Laura Bach was asking Daron if he'd heard any loud, strange noises or gunshots while he was sleeping. You learn sitting through hours of court testimony that attorneys often ask questions without giving them any context, without signifying why they might matter. Usually, those little details that seem obscure at the time come back into play later on. So, even though we didn't know anything about any loud, strange noises at Ed's house, and apparently Daron didn't either, Laura Bach had something up her sleeve. Okay, back to the cross-examination.
And what happens when you wake up?
I washed my face and went outside.
And then what happens?
Then a blue convertible Porsche pulled up.
Okay, and it's not just a blue convertible Porsche, it's a special kind of blue Porsche, right?
I saw a convertible blue Porsche. I don't know what kind of Porsche it was.
When it pulls up, you know it's a 911 Turbo, right?
I know it's a 911 Turbo.
You know that's an expensive car, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You know it costs about 6 figures?
No, ma'am.
You didn't know that?
I just know it's not a regular car that anybody could own.
You know it's not a regular car that anybody could own. By that you mean it's a very expensive car?
Yes, ma'am. I would think in the same price range of a BMW and Mercedes.
All right. So the blue Porsche pulls up, and this is who's in the car?
I didn't know who was in the car at first.
Well, at some point you figure it out, right?
Yeah, after he stepped out the car, I realized it was Daron.
Now, at this point, Laura Bach zeroed in on the time when Daron said Darrell drove up in the Porsche. Daron said it was some time after 10 in the morning. Why is that important?
You heard in trial, you heard Claudia Alfaro, the daughter of Vera Figueroa, testify that she saw Amy's blue Porsche at 9:30 in the morning on May 14th. You heard her testify to that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Remember, Claudia testified she and her dad went to Woodland Drive looking for Vera. When she was waiting in the car, Claudia texted her husband a few pictures of a Porsche parked on the street.
So you know that you can't say Darrell picked you up before 9:30, right? It's got to be after 10.
I'm telling you that because that's the truth.
I'm asking you, did you hear her testify to that?
Yes, ma'am.
You also had the phone records about where it was Sava Savopoulos' phone was bouncing off the cell towers. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And again, when we're talking about Sava Savopoulos' phone, and we'll get to this, we're talking about those 2 white iPhones that you had on May 14th. Is that right?
I don't know where those phones come from.
Really? You don't know that one of those phones or both of those phones belong to the Savopouloses?
No, ma'am.
You haven't figured that out yet?
No, ma'am.
And you did not know that we had the records showing that inside of your phone, you had typed 24 and K about the location of the minivan?
Yes, ma'am.
And you knew all of that before coming in here with this timeline in terms of when it is Darrell Wint just happens to show up at Ed's house on May 14th in this blue Porsche convertible.
I didn't come up with that timeline, ma'am. I'm telling you the truth of what happened.
You didn't come up with a timeline.
I'm just telling you the truth of when Darrell actually showed up.
You haven't been sitting over here writing a timeline?
Timeline of when Darrell showed up?
No, you haven't been sitting here at this table writing a timeline throughout this trial.
Writing a timeline?
Yes, writing a timeline.
No, ma'am.
You haven't been sitting here taking notes on what the witnesses are saying, writing a timeline.
I take notes, but not those kind of notes.
No timeline.
No, ma'am.
During the next court break, Judy Pipe asked the judge if she'd clarified to the jury that Daron Wint had every right to hear all the evidence against him. It's a right enshrined in the Constitution. She argued it wasn't fair for Laura Bach to suggest his hearing other witnesses testify was somehow improper. Bach agreed. Daron had the right to hear the evidence against him as the defendant. But she said she wanted to point out to the jury because of that, when he took the witness stand, it gave him the ability to craft his story around the evidence that was already presented. The judge agreed to say to the jurors, to instruct them, that Daron Wint had a constitutional right to be in the courtroom and to hear all the evidence against him. And the trial resumed. At this point in her cross-examination, Laura Bach starts to ask Daron about what he said happened when he arrived at the Savopoulos house with Darrell.
And when you get to the house on Woodland Drive, Darrell parks the car, according to you, on the street in front of the house. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And Darrell goes up, opens the door, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Not wearing gloves, just unlocks the door, right?
I didn't notice nothing. I just know he ran in the door.
So he could have been wearing gloves now.
He could have been, or he might not. I didn't pay too much attention.
Was he wearing gloves in the Porsche?
I wasn't paying attention.
You wouldn't have noticed if he had big construction gloves on as he's driving?
I would, yeah.
So was he wearing gloves when he's driving the Porsche?
I can't remember if I actually paid that much attention.
So you don't remember if he's wearing gloves?
No, ma'am.
No, you can't remember, or no, he wasn't?
I can't remember if he was wearing gloves. I didn't pay that much attention.
So you didn't pay attention to whether he was wearing gloves in the Porsche?
No, ma'am.
You go up to the house, you don't know if he's wearing gloves when he gets to the house?
No, ma'am.
But he opens the door, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you think you're going there to go do 30 minutes worth of work, is that right?
Yes, ma'am. Some painting, drywall. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you get there, you have to do 30 minutes worth of work, right?
Yes, ma'am.
That's it?
Yes, ma'am.
And then hopefully, at that point, you can get your minivan and go home, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, And so you get in there and you decide to go have a seat in this sort of nice receiving room, right?
Yes, Darrell told me sit right here.
That's what you do when you go work in somebody's house?
That's what he told me to do.
I'm asking, that's what you did?
Yes, ma'am, that's what I did.
Okay, and in comes Darrell with this pizza box. Now, he definitely has gloves on, you think, right?
After he opened the box is when I noticed the gloves.
You don't even know that he had the gloves on when he brought the box in?
Can you repeat the question?
So you don't actually see him wearing gloves when he brings the box in?
When he brings in the box?
Just explain to me how he brings the box in.
Okay, he went up the steps. I know he went up the steps because I hear the footprint. He came back down with the box, and he opened the box with the gloves. And I said, why are you holding the pizza you're about to give me to eat with these dirty gloves? And he's like, I'm just ready to work. He said, I have the box. I'm not grabbing the pizza.
So he brings down a pizza box, sits it on the table, opens it up for you?
Yes, ma'am.
With these dirty gloves on?
Yes, ma'am.
And then what do?
I took a slice.
And where's Darrell?
Darrell is standing right there.
He just stood there and watched you eat it?
Well, I don't know if he was watching me eat it. That'd be kind of creepy.
Right. It would be kind of creepy. So what does he do?
He's just standing there talking to me while I was eating pizza.
Does he stand there the whole time?
I think so. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and while you're in the house, don't hear any noises upstairs?
No, ma'am.
Don't hear any chairs making any noises, right?
No, ma'am.
No scratching on the floor?
No, ma'am.
Don't hear any dogs either, do you?
I hear the dogs, ma'am.
Oh, you did hear dogs?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, when did you hear the dogs?
I just heard barking.
You heard barking? When did you hear the barking?
When I was sitting at the table.
Oh, when you were sitting at the table. The whole time or just part of the time?
The whole time.
The whole time. Was it loud? Was it quiet?
The dog barks?
Yeah, the dog barks.
I don't know if it was loud but there was dogs barking. I would say loud.
Did they sound close or far away?
They sounded like they was behind where I was sitting.
And I guess you just failed to mention that on direct?
Judy Pipe objected, and the judge asked Laura Bach to rephrase her question.
I'm just asking, did you mention that yesterday?
I can't recall. I don't think I was even asked the question.
Well, you were asked yesterday if you heard any noises, and you said no. Do you remember that?
The question was if I heard any noise. And okay, yes, I didn't mention that.
This actually seemed like a pretty big deal. We know the family's 2 Chesapeake Bay retrievers, Ginger and Bear, were at the house at the time that Amy, Sava, Philip, and Vera were killed. When the wallpaper installer, Donald Spence, called 911, he said he could hear the dogs inside. But in the very detailed story that Daron laid out for his lawyer, of going to the house with his brother and sitting down in a fancy receiving room and eating that slice of pizza, he never said anything about hearing dogs bark. Maybe he didn't think it was important. Maybe he forgot about the dogs. Or maybe he couldn't tell anymore what was the truth and what was a lie. This podcast is brought to you in partnership with Quince. Fall is upon us, and I don't know about you, maybe it's the back-to-school fresh start that we used to have as kids, but I tend to update my wardrobe when the cooler temperatures hit, and Quince makes it easy to look polished and save big without compromising on quality. I already have a few of their signature 100% cashmere sweaters. Fancy, huh? A good gift, by the way, at $50, as well as their washable silk tops and skirts. But if you're looking for a nice wool coat or to update your denim for the fall, now's the time. And it won't break the bank. Quince does it by cutting out the middleman and partnering with ethical top-tier factories to deliver luxury quality at half the price of similar brands. Keep it classic and cozy this fall with long-lasting staples from Quince. Go to quince.com/nightmares for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/nightmares to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/nightmares. Daron Wint is going up against DC's top homicide prosecutor, Laura Bach. They both clearly have their own agenda. She's trying to get him to trip up and reveal holes in his story of what happened on May 13th and 14th of 2015. He's trying to get out of this without incriminating himself. We pick up after Daron testified he ate the slice of pizza inside the Savopoulos' house. He then said he went out to the Porsche to retrieve his phone, and that his brother Darrell had told him to meet him around the side of the house in the garage. That's when two grounds workers at the Australian ambassador's residence across the street saw a black man with dreadlocks and a string backpack slip under the garage door as it was opening. They said he never touched the door. It seemingly opened for him and closed behind him.
Now, Mr. Wint, when you go into the garage at 3201 Woodland, you actually go into the garage by yourself, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you go into the garage, what time is it?
It had to be around 11, 11:30. Between like 11:45, 12 o'clock.
Okay, is Darrell in the garage?
Yes, ma'am.
What's Darrell doing?
He's just standing there.
Okay, and then what happens?
And then he just hands me a green construction vest.
And you just put it on?
Yes, ma'am.
And he hands you a hard hat?
Yes, ma'am.
And you just put it on?
Yes, ma'am.
No idea why at that point?
No, but I asked him.
Okay, so you put them on, and then you ask him, why am I putting these on?
Yeah, why do I need it just to do some paint and drywall in the house?
And it's at that point that you said he tells you, we'll be less conspicuous unloading the house if you're wearing these things, right?
Yes, not those terms, but yes.
The point is, you're not going to stand out as much if you're wearing a construction vest, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Because it'll look like you're working on the house, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And when he said to you about unloading the house, you knew what he meant, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you don't want any part of that. That's your testimony.
No, ma'am.
And you're upset, right?
Because I'm here to do some honest work, not to steal from the house.
Right, you're upset.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, your brother's just totally lied to you, right?
Well, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, he told you this was honest work, right?
Yes.
And he's lied to you, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And he got you into something that you weren't expecting, right?
Yes, ma'am. I'm not stealing.
Right, because that's not what you were up there to do, right?
No, ma'am.
And you took off that hard hat and you threw it on the ground, right?
Yes, ma'am. I was upset.
Because you were angry, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you stormed out of that garage, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, how did you get out?
He opened the door.
Oh, he opened the door back up for you?
Yes, ma'am.
As you're storming out?
I couldn't open the garage door. He locked it.
So he opens up the big garage door for you?
No, I was walking up there, the garage door opened, and I ducked under and went in.
I'm asking you how you go out.
Laura Bach's unrelenting cross-examination was beginning to weaken Daron's story. He said he just slipped into the garage, got in an argument with his brother, and stormed out. But it doesn't really make sense. In his story, Daron's refusing to do what his brother wants. He throws the hard hat, he's so mad. And when he turns to leave, Darrell helpfully opens the garage door for him. And then as he walked away from the garage, about 5-10 minutes later, he said Darrell drives up beside him in the Porsche.
When he pulls up, he said, "Get in." I said, "No." He said, "I'm taking you to your van," and I get in.
So even though he's just asked you to rob or burglarize a house, you get in the car?
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to get to my van.
And let's just talk for a moment about this car. You said it's, in your mind, it's like a BMW, right?
I mean, it's just as expensive. Yes, ma'am.
Tell me this. You knew the Porsche wasn't Darrell's?
Yes, ma'am. I knew it wasn't.
He just asked you to steal everything from these people's home, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you decided to just get in the car with him because he said he'll take you to this van, right?
Because I don't think nobody will be driving around in a stolen car.
Really? You didn't think he might drive around in a stolen car?
No, ma'am.
And according to you, he lied to you about the fact that it was a legitimate job, right?
Yes, ma'am.
According to you, he lied to you about why he needed your van, right?
Yes, ma'am.
According to you, he lied to you when he said he was coming back to get you on May 13th, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And according to you, He lied to you when he said he needed to take you there for 30 more minutes of work. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
But you thought that he would be totally above board about this car that he was driving that he can't afford.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to get to my van.
I never thought about from a prosecutor's standpoint. You have to be aggressive enough that the person looks bad and looks guilty, but you don't want to put them in a position where they look like they're being picked on or vulnerable. You know, like you don't want the jury to see them as the victim.
That's audio of a call I made to Jack on the day of Daron's cross-examination.
And we bordered that, and this other reporter agreed with me. He kind of had the impression that her demeanor went a little bit over the top, like she raised her voice a lot. She kind of repeated the same questions over and over again, and she was a little hostile in how she asked the questions. It was bordering on bullying, and it was good. A lot of that strategy got answers, right? Like got answers from Wint that she wanted and got him to kind of like falter in his storyline.
We asked Glenn Kirshner about the strategy behind questioning a defendant. He's the former federal prosecutor who hired Laura Bach and led the homicide division at the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office.
How do you do that? You know, you want to show the jury that, you know, you're not buying the story, but you also don't want to make them come across as sympathetic for any reason.
It's an art, not a science. And everything that Laura does in court, every question she asks a defendant on cross-examination, she's aware of the impact it has on the jurors, because that's what it's all about. And yes, jurors want to see you push an accused killer hard on the stand and test every aspect of his or her story that they've just spit out on direct examination, which you know was extremely rehearsed, which you know was entirely exculpatory, designed to get him off whether he committed the crime or not. You know, and one thing that I always argue to my juries after a defendant chose to testify, very few homicide murder defendants choose to testify because it doesn't end well for them after we cross-examine them. But I tell every single jury, you know, ladies and gentlemen, when you saw that the defendant chose to testify and he got up from where you've seen him sitting behind defense table for this entire trial and he walked across the well of the courtroom and he sat his butt down in the witness chair, what did you expect him to say? Okay, you got me. I did it. No, he was going to have to come up with some ridiculous explanation for all of the incriminating evidence. Why? Because he wants to get away with a crime he committed. So jurors want to see you go hard after defendants.
Laura Bach certainly did that. This episode is brought to you in partnership with Kachava. I was completely influenced and tried Kachava a few months ago, and now I'm hooked. It's not chalky, and while Kachava has 25 grams of protein per shake, it also has more than 85 superfoods, nutrients, and plant-based ingredients. Go to Kachava.com and use code NIGHTMARES for 15% off your next order. That's Kachava, Kachava.com, code NIGHTMARES for 15% off. Now we're to the part of Daron's testimony where he and his brother are leaving the Savopoulos neighborhood, driving out of D.C. in Amy's blue Porsche 911 toward Prince George's County, Maryland. Daron said they ended up pulling into that parking lot near the church and the LaFontaine Blue Shopping Center. That's where we pick up Laura Bach's cross-examination.
And just so we know and understand, you said that you were familiar with the area in that parking lot because you said your sister lives over there, right?
Yes, ma'am. My sister lives in the back, and my brother lives across the street.
And your brother is your brother Stefan, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, there's another reason you're familiar with that area, right?
Not to my knowledge right now, no.
Mr. Wint, who else used to live there?
Oh, me, yes.
Yeah, you.
Yes, ma'am.
Laura Bach then started describing that area around the parking lot, the overgrown brush and weeds that was full of trash.
There's a lot of, let's call it sketchy stuff, maybe, that goes on. Is that fair to say?
I never really pay attention to what goes on there.
You didn't ever see anybody there doing some illegal things sometimes?
No, ma'am.
You never saw anybody just kind of hanging out in that area?
People hangs out on the steps coming out of the walkway and in the church parking lot.
Okay, so people hang out in that area?
Yeah, people always hang out there.
All right, drinking?
Yes.
Sometimes using drugs?
I would assume so, yes.
Maybe even some prostitution every once in a while?
I ain't see all that.
Jack and I had also noticed that tangled thicket when we went to visit the parking lot and spotted the charred patch of asphalt where the Porsche was burned. But during Laura Bach's cross-examination, we couldn't really figure out why she was asking these questions about rumors of sketchy stuff that apparently went on there.
So what happens when Darrell gets to this parking lot with you in the Porsche?
He said he got to pick somebody up at 5 o'clock to get done what he needed to get done. He can't take me to my van anymore.
Okay, then what happens?
And then I got pretty upset and stepped out of the Porsche and I threw the vest at him.
When you say pretty upset, what do you mean by that?
Upset to the fact is that first he was supposed to take me to my van. Second, take me to a house where you're stealing stuff. Third, he brought me all the way to Maryland and back and I didn't get my van yet.
So what happens at that point?
Darrell pulled off.
Okay, so you're standing there, you've thrown the vest at him. Where do you go?
I was about to walk over to the bus stop.
Okay, and what happens as you're walking over there?
I realized Darrell hadn't given me the keys to my van.
Had you asked him for them?
No, ma'am.
You asked him multiple times to take you to the minivan, but you never bothered to ask for the keys?
Because yes, ma'am.
I'm asking yes or no. Is that what happened?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Daron testified earlier that when he realized he didn't have the keys, he walked over to Annapolis Road and flagged down a tow truck driver. Daron said he paid the driver $100 from the $300 Darrell had given him, and then rode with the driver to 24th and K Streets in downtown D.C. to get his van. During the trip, he's sending texts and calling different people from the driver's phone, including Darrell. But why did Daron have his van towed back to the parking lot? Laura Bach made it clear that didn't make sense.
And again, why did you think Darrell's going to be here?
Because he's supposed to come back and pick somebody up, he said.
So he said he was actually going to pick them up right here?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is the same Darrell who's lied to you, 6, 7 times at this point?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and Darrell knows where your father Dennis lives, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because that's his dad, too.
Yes, ma'am.
And Darrell easily could have just met you at your dad's house, right?
Yes, ma'am.
No reason why that van couldn't have been towed to your dad's house.
No, ma'am.
All right, but instead of towing the van to your dad's house, you decide to have it towed to the very place where the Porsche starts burning within an hour. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And the only reason you had your minivan towed, you said, is because you didn't have your keys, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, there's other reasons why you don't want to be driving an unregistered minivan, right?
I mean, the fact it's unregistered.
Well, right. What happens when you're driving an unregistered minivan sometimes?
It's unregistered.
Well, yeah, you get pulled over, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You get stopped by the police, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And when the police stop you, they don't just stop you. They look in your car, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you've got any stuff that you've maybe just taken out of a house, they might see it, right?
I don't understand that question.
Well, if you've got stuff that you shouldn't have in your minivan, the police might see it if they stop it, don't you think?
Well, the police won't know what I should or should not have.
You don't think they would maybe recognize bloody clothes?
Yes, they would recognize bloody clothes.
Okay, so that would be the kind of stuff you don't want the police to see?
I mean, if you commit a crime, I wouldn't think so, no.
The mystery of why Daron might have wanted his van towed didn't seem so mysterious anymore. He couldn't risk getting pulled over for a driving violation. The police might search his minivan, or take it and arrest him.
And you were very, very concerned about your minivan getting linked to 3201 Woodland Drive, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
You had concerns that you might also be arrested, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you thought you might also be arrested because your van could be connected to that scene.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that's why you felt the need to call Mr. Ailing to have him help you burn your minivan, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you thought it could be connected to the fire?
Yes, ma'am, because Darrell wasn't telling me anything.
And an hour after that phone call to Mr. Ailing asking him to help you burn the minivan is burned, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And
I think that's the time. I'm not sure.
You don't remember that testimony?
I can't remember the time it was burned.
Well, you heard Mr. Ailing testify that he talked to you at 11:16 on May 15th, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you heard the fire department, or the firefighter, indicate that he responded to the scene of 51st and Frolic right around 12:30 on May 16th, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's a little over an hour, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But you didn't have anything to do with it?
No, ma'am.
And 51st and Frolic, again, that's the same location. It's less than a block away from where you worked for 8 or 9 years, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And one of the things that you told us was that when you first saw the news that house had caught on fire and those people had been killed, the very first thing that you looked up was how to beat a lie detector test. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
And the reason you looked it up was your very first thought was, I'm going to have to lie to the police about this.
Yes, ma'am, because if my van was involved, they would be questioning me about my van.
Your very first instinct was that you were going to lie to the police.
Yes, ma'am.
Daron Wint spent an entire day on the witness stand being grilled by Laura Bach. Several of the exchanges were uncomfortable to watch. On TV, big courtroom scenes are always dramatic and exciting. But in real life, the exchanges were mostly about the minutia of the case. Sometimes they were awkward, and they often fell short of the drama you'd expect. But as she approached the end of her cross-examination, the tension in the room began to ratchet up.
All right, and we've already established you went to the gym all the time, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You were not going to have any problem overpowering a 5'8" man, are you?
I was strong. I don't think so.
Okay, you're not going to have any problem overpowering a 57-year-old female, right?
No, ma'am. I don't think so.
You're not going to have any problem overpowering a 5'4", 138-pound woman, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you can certainly overpower a 10-year-old boy, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
You've lied to Vanessa, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You've lied to your father, Dennis, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You've lied to your stepmother, Pam, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You've lied to the police, right?
I didn't lie to my stepmother.
You didn't lie to your stepmother.
I can't remember. When did I tell her a lie?
You didn't lie to your stepmother about where you'd been on May 14th and May 13th?
We didn't have that. I was having a conversation with my father.
Oh, so she was just overhearing it, but it wasn't directly to her?
Yes, ma'am.
You were not at home on May 13th and May 14th of 2015, is that right?
No, ma'am.
And you were at 3201 Woodland on May 14th?
No, ma'am.
On May 14th, you were at 3201 Woodland, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You're the guy whose DNA is on the pizza crust, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're the guy whose DNA is on the pizza crust because you're the guy who's eating pizza in that house, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
On May 14th.
Yes, ma'am.
And just so everybody, I guess, is aware, you're the guy who's wearing the construction vest that's found in that burned up Porsche, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And it's your DNA on that construction vest, right?
I would assume so. Yes, ma'am. I was wearing the construction vest, so probably yes, ma'am.
And your DNA is on it because you're wearing it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're wearing it at 3201 Woodland, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And your hair is in the hard hat, right?
I don't know. I put the hard hat on. I don't know whose hair it is.
Well, you're the one who put it on your head, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you put it on your head inside of 3201 Woodland, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And that would certainly explain why your hair would be in the hard hat, right?
Yes, ma'am, because I had it on.
Because you had it on at that location, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Just like you had the knife at that location, right?
No, ma'am.
Just like you had your hair in that room with those 3 dead people in that location, right?
No, ma'am.
Your hair in the bed next to the bat you used to kill Amy and Sava Savopoulos. Isn't that right?
No, ma'am.
I don't have anything else, Your Honor.
And with that, Laura Bach ended her cross-examination of Daron Wint. This message is sponsored by Greenlight. Money is a part of daily life. You can't escape it. So teaching our kids about it early isn't just smart, it's an essential life skill. Greenlight is a debit card and money app for families. You can use it to send money to your child or grandchild's card, see how they spend it, and even assign chores to earn it. I know a pair of grandparents who prefer to send money to their granddaughter's Greenlight debit card for birthdays rather than buying something online, because unlike a toy or a gift card, she's learning how to save and invest while building money confidence along the way. If I had Greenlight growing up, perhaps I would have known not to sign up for the high interest rate credit card because I wanted a few bucks off of a cool jacket at the mall. Give your kids the financial education many of us did not get. Join millions of parents and kids already using Greenlight. Start your risk-free Greenlight trial today at greenlight.com/nightmares. That's greenlight.com/nightmares. Was it Daron's idea to take the stand in his own defense? We'll probably never know for certain. That falls under attorney-client privilege. But from a defense attorney's perspective, the decision was unusual. In a murder case like this, how badly do you not want your client to take the stand?
I mean, I've tried several murder cases, and I may have called one client to the stand total in my entire career in a murder case.
That's Jason Downs. He used to work with Judy Pipe at the D.C. Public Defender Service and is now in private practice. We asked him about the strategy of putting a defendant on the stand.
It's usually because it is so difficult to undergo cross-examination. Doesn't matter if you're telling the truth or not. Getting cross-examined is hard for anybody. And so you usually don't want to put your client under that kind of pressure. So I would go out of my way to keep my client off the stand in a general murder case. If Judy put her client on, there was a very, very good reason for it.
It did answer some questions in this case. Having Daron take the stand provided an alternative explanation for some of the evidence. How his DNA got on the pizza crust. Why he was going into the Sofopoulos' garage when the witnesses saw him slip under the door. And why he had no cell phone activity during the majority of those 2 days. If Daron didn't testify, there wouldn't have been much of a defense case at all. The prosecution's case lasted nearly a month. The defense, including Daron's 2 days on the stand, didn't even last a week. Hearing Daron tell his side of the story gave jurors the opportunity to weigh two competing theories of the case. Yes, the prosecution's narrative had gaps, but so did Daron's. Parts of it really didn't stand up to scrutiny. So we don't know if it was his idea, but whether he took the stand was completely up to Daron.
I know Judy well enough to know that she takes her job so seriously that she would have had a very long conversation, probably multiple conversations with her client, and told him the positives and the negatives about testifying. And then, because she takes her job so seriously, she would have left the decision to him because it's his decision and his decision alone, and she would not want to rob him of that decision.
After Laura Bach's cross-examination, Judy Pipe got a chance to ask her client a few more questions on redirect. She started with one of Laura Bach's attack lines, that Daron was fabricating his defense, fitting it around the timeline and evidence collected by prosecutors. The legal term for that kind of evidence, that prosecutors have to turn over to defense attorneys, is called discovery. While Judy Pipe maintained that Daron had the right to see the discovery, she revealed during one of those conferences at the bench that it was her practice in this case not to hand Daron the witness statements before they took the stand. We're not sure why she did this. Maybe it was to prevent him from being accused of fabricating a defense based on the evidence. But when she tried to clarify his motives in making a timeline, it didn't go very smoothly.
Good afternoon, Mr. Wint.
Good afternoon.
Now, the government has asked you a lot of questions about your knowledge about the evidence in this case. Do you remember those questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Was there a whole lot of discovery in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Are we talking thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of discovery?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Have you looked at a lot of it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Have you looked at all of it?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
We asked our content advisor, Julia Ziegler, to read Judy Pipe's part in the transcript. And again, our colleague Claude Jennings is reading the part of Daron. This is all word for word from the D.C. Superior Court transcript of the trial.
Let's talk about statements from witnesses. The government asked you a lot of questions about that.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you aware that when witnesses go to the grand jury, there's a transcript made?
I learned that during the trial, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Prior to this trial starting, did anyone give you copies of those transcripts?
No, ma'am.
Did anybody read you copies of those transcripts?
No, ma'am.
Did anyone sit there while you read copies of those transcripts?
No, ma'am.
Did you eventually, at some point, read some of those transcripts?
Yes, ma'am.
When?
When they was on the stand.
All of the transcripts that you have read, are they for witnesses who have testified in this case?
I'm confused by that question.
I did say that weird. You've said you've read some witnesses' transcripts, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Every transcript that you've read, is that of a witness who took the stand in this case?
No, ma'am.
Okay. You've read transcripts of witnesses who did not testify?
I read transcripts, right. I read transcripts for witnesses that didn't take the stand.
You read some who did not testify?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When have you read those?
I can't remember, but it was a while back.
Was it before or after this trial started?
Before the trial started.
Did you understand what I was asking you?
Okay, I read the transcript for witnesses that did not testify, but witnesses that testified, I didn't read anything.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
No.
I mean, okay, everybody that took the stand.
Let me try this again. Okay. We talked about before. Did you read any transcripts before this trial started?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Once this trial started, did you read some transcripts?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When I say take the stand, people who were sitting in that same exact chair that you are sitting in, right?
Yes, ma'am. That's the transcripts that I read.
Okay. Have you read any transcripts of witnesses who did not sit in that seat where you are sitting?
No, ma'am.
Has it been a very long day for you, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
It's clear there was a lot of confusion between Daron Wint and his own attorney during her attempts to clarify for the jury how he accessed the evidence against him. So eventually, Judy Pipe just went right to the point.
Are you trying to craft your testimony to match what the witnesses have said in this trial, Mr. Wint?
No, ma'am.
What are you trying to testify to?
Just the way I remember it.
So when Miss Bach was asking you questions, were you trying to be accurate with your answers?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you being a bit cautious with your words?
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
Because I know the government could take your words and twist it and turn it to how it best suits them.
Judy Pipe then returned to some specific questions Laura Bach raised in her cross.
Okay. Miss Bach asked you questions about what you heard while you were in the house. Do you remember those questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember her saying that you never mentioned the dogs on direct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did I ask you about hearing dogs on direct?
No, ma'am.
So is that my fault?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did I ask you what you heard while you were in the house? Or did I ask you, did you hear anyone upstairs?
You asked me if I heard anyone upstairs.
Okay. If I had asked you, did you hear anything in that house? What would your answer have been?
I hear dogs.
Miss Bach asked you a lot of questions about kind of your physical state back in May of 2015. Do you remember those?
Yes, ma'am.
She asked you whether or not you could overpower people. Do you remember those questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you ever overpower anyone in May of 2015?
No, ma'am.
Did you overpower Sava Savopoulos?
No, ma'am.
Did you overpower Amy Savopoulos?
No, ma'am.
Philip Savopoulos?
No, ma'am.
Vera Figueroa?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever see them while you were in the house at 3201 Woodland Drive?
No, ma'am.
Did you have anything to do with what happened to those people?
No, ma'am.
I don't have any further questions.
Finally, after 2 days on the witness stand, Daron Wint stepped down and went to take a seat next to his attorneys. After Daron's testimony, the defense called a few more witnesses, starting with Ed's neighbors. Judy Pipe had to prove that Ed really did exist. They said yes, they knew of Ed, and yes, he was the kind of guy who would work on your car for a few bucks, the kind of guy who would do pretty much anything for a few bucks. And yes, Ed was still very much dead. As the defense was preparing to wind down its case, Jack and I wondered what would come next. Legally, the next phase of the trial is what's called rebuttal. The prosecution can come back and call new witnesses. But there's a catch. Prosecutors can only call witnesses who can specifically refute points the defense brought up in its case.
So I was Googling around and I was reading that sometimes the rebuttal phase is when the prosecution springs a surprise. That's when they can do that, because before that, they really can't.
This is another call between Jack and I during the trial. He said, unlike discovery, when the prosecution has to share what it has against the defense before the trial begins, it does not have to reveal its plan for rebuttal.
But maybe they're holding something back in their back pocket for the rebuttal. Like maybe they were planning this all along.
Maybe. I don't know what could the surprise possibly be?
It seemed to us that Daron taking the stand would probably be the biggest surprise of the trial. But there was one witness we hadn't heard from. Daron Wint. We couldn't figure out why prosecutors hadn't called Daron already. For one thing, we knew going into the trial that Daron was with Daron when he was arrested. Daron had been taken into custody that night too, and certainly that seemed relevant. And during the defense's case, when prosecutor Laura Bach was cross-examining Daron Wint, we learned Daron had a larger role in the case than we thought. Again, this is Laura Bach cross-examining Daron.
Now, you know in this case that one of the things that you were provided with is the information that Daron provided to the government. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And when I say the information, I mean interviews, right?
Yes, ma'am. Well, correction. I don't think there's a statement from Daron.
You didn't see the interview from the night that you guys were all arrested? Or that you were all stopped?
No, ma'am.
You're telling us you don't know that Daron gave us a statement that night you were stopped?
I have no, ma'am.
You have no idea?
I know the most I know, he was supposed to be testifying. But I haven't seen no interview.
All right. When you say testifying, you mean against you?
I mean coming into the court.
Against you?
Yes, ma'am.
Judy Pipe objected, and the lawyers approached the judge's bench. The judge flipped on the white noise machine again. The transcript reads, Judy Pipe argued prosecutors were improperly taking advantage of having Daron on the stand to bring up Daron. She said her client wasn't aware what Daron told police, and if prosecutors wanted to talk about what Daron did or didn't do, they should have called him as a witness. Bach countered, arguing Daron was trying to frame his brother because of what Daron had told police. The judge allowed Laura Bach to continue, and her next question spelled it all out.
Let me try to ask it, I guess, as direct as possible. You know that Daron Wint took the police to a location in that block and pointed out a pile of burned debris in that area. Is that right?
No, ma'am.
And you know that he indicated that you were the one who burned that debris?
No, ma'am.
You didn't know that?
No, ma'am.
You had no idea?
No, ma'am.
And you never saw any photographs of burned debris, not from a minivan, but another pile further down that block of burned debris?
Yes, ma'am. I saw those photographs.
You did see those photographs?
Yes, ma'am.
And you saw the evidence in those photographs?
Yes, ma'am.
But you had no idea what it had to do with your case?
No, ma'am.
And you just kind of threw up your hands like, oh, well, don't care?
I mean, I know this is part of the case because my lawyer had it. They wouldn't have nothing that's not part of the case.
But you didn't know where that information was coming from?
I mean, it's coming from the government.
You didn't know it was coming directly from your brother?
No, ma'am.
Laura Bach asked the judge to approach the witness stand. She walked up to Daron and handed him a photo. We got a copy later from prosecutors. In it, you can see a small pile of ash and other blackened debris. Now, to be clear, this is not at the Savopoulos house. It's not the same fire where the Porsche was burned. It's not the fire where Daron's van was burned. There's a fourth fire in this case, and it happened just down the road from where firefighters found Daron's burning minivan. It's clear from the photograph of the fourth fire scene something was burned there, but you can't really tell what. Except if you zoom in on what looks like wires at the edges of the pile, You can see their black zip ties. Like the zip ties investigators believe were used to restrain Sava Savopoulos.
You've seen that photograph before, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're telling us that you had no idea that information came from your brother, Darrell?
No, ma'am.
It turned out Daron's brother, Darrell, had been cooperating with prosecutors. He'd answered detectives' questions, and he'd led them to a potential key piece of evidence. Now, the question on everyone's mind was, where's Darrell? On the next episode of 22 Hours, An American Nightmare.
The motive in the case being all about the money is not really explained by the brutality of the crime.
Because 40 grand, well, it means a lot of money. But when you hear 4 people were killed and he left with 40 grand, it's like, well, that's it? We change things up and go into the studio with a guest to answer your questions so far in this case.
But my brain goes to, well, where was Philip when the intruder came in?
Hello, everybody. We're back with Julia Ziegler and Jack Moore from the people who created this podcast from 22 Hours fame to discuss how it all came together. And we just finished the On the Stand and Cross episodes where we hear the transcripts read aloud. And we wanted to give listeners a feel for what it was like in the courtroom and to hear exactly what was said. So, Jack, first, let's back up a tiny bit and talk about the transcripts, because it was not as easy as it sounds to get the transcripts. Jack can explain that the DC court system, obviously, they offer them, but we didn't know exactly what we wanted to request. So that was really the first hurdle, because it was just days and days and days and days. I think it was like 20 days or something, 8 hours of transcripts.
Yeah, and so first you have, first the biggest challenge is you have to pay for them, and it's not cheap. It's, a full day will set you back a couple $100.
Which made me so mad, by the way. I'm just saying, it made me so mad. Because if you were like Aunt Mary and you wanted to know what happened, there was no audio recording, there was no video recording, and if you wanted the transcripts, who's able to afford that? That's an aside, an angry aside.
And and the other thing logistically is you have to know exactly what days you want, what testimony you want. So it's luckily we were fairly well organized, so we could, we knew what days people had testified on, in part because we had covered the trial when it was happening, so we could look back at our articles and in the live blog to say, oh, what day did so and so testify, because it's not it's really kind of an antiquated system. There's no way for you to look up a trial and know who testified and what testimony you want. They'll ask you, what day do you want? What testimony do you want? So it's really kind of an old-fashioned kind of system, and probably many, many court systems all across the United States are like that. So it's really, not that knowledge about what's going on in the court systems on the local level is really kind of not is very sort of opaque.
So episodes 6 and 7 were, for me at least, I would say the most confounding part of the production, as far as from a journalistic standpoint and a production perspective. The issue was, how do we make the back and forth between the attorneys and those who are on the stand clear to the listener? And at some point we had to decide we needed each person to have a different, distinct voice. And Julie, can you talk about, the start of this ethical challenge, I think, was how are we even going to do this? Are we going to cast people to read them? Because I remember I went in and I tried to do it in voicing it. And I sounded like I was having some kind of, mental breakdown because I was trying to do different voices, and it sounded like I was talking to myself. So obviously that didn't work.
Yeah, I think as we went through it, the biggest question was, like you said, ethically, are we going to do this? And if we are, for the sake of, again, at the end of the day, the audience and the audience's ability to understand what we're saying, and for you to read, both the person on the stand and the, whether it was the prosecutor or the defense attorney, to read all of that would have been so confusing for the listener. So we knew that if we were going to use the back and forth, we were going to use the testimony, we needed to have other voices that were not you, or not Jack. And then the question became, okay, well, who's going to do this? And we wanted it to sound authentic. And we wanted also, tone was really important. And I remember talking to you and Jack when I was playing my part, to say, well, what did this person sound like? Like, tell me how they were, what was their demeanor? How did they talk? And because I genuinely wanted to make sure that I was delivering what they said as close to the way they said it as possible, because I didn't want to deliver a tone that wasn't there during the testimony, because tone is everything, So to me, that was really important. And then it also became, well, who did we want to do it, and who did we think would be available to do it? And then, we cast people based on that too. And I know you guys, though, had some ideas around that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it was you want to represent the voice as accurately as possible. And then somebody who wanted to do it, who wanted to be a part of the project. And honestly, the availability of that person, because when we were putting this together, obviously it was 2 different episodes. So we needed somebody who was going to be able to do a back and forth and was kind of willing to. I mean, Jack, I remember we were sitting we kind of sat in while everyone was voicing the parts. And I felt like a director or something. I was like, no, she didn't say it. That's not how Laura Bach talks.
Right.
Sort of, it's a little more clipped, or it's a little more aggressive or something. And I think at times, as a listener, it's hard to listen to those 2 episodes, in my opinion, because they're very different than the others. They're not narrative. It's kind of combative, and it also doesn't really deliver. Like, you want Daron to just answer the damn question and say, yeah, this is, and he would just be like, yes, ma'am. And you could hear their frustration rising even in just what was written.
But I think you guys also did like a really good job of, as you were scripting out that episode, and we told listeners this up front, right? Like, we have condensed certain parts of testimony to make it easier for you to understand, because as you just said, testimony goes all over the place. And if you were sitting in court, something that maybe took, I'm just making this up, 15 minutes, you guys had to condense down to, 2 minutes or a minute or whatever that might have been. And so you guys were really diligent about looking at the court transcripts and saying, we're going to pull this piece of testimony and this piece of testimony. And yes, those things weren't exactly they're in order, they're chronological, but we're cutting out this middle piece where it kind of went off on a tangent, Right.
And then you hear Jack kind of connect, like, and now we're going, because Jack is just brilliant at the transitions in between the 2 pieces. So it kind of would be like, okay, this is, and this is what happened. We're going to spare you the next 5 minutes. He basically never answered the question. Now we're going to go to the next section that was impactful. And Jack, do you remember, I was really uncomfortable with this. And again, this goes back to journalism ethics. And I think I had to get comfortable with it for the sake of the listener and clarity. But I mean, even just who we're casting to be the brothers, and are they Black men? Are they, who's available? And how, obviously they're not going to have the same accents. Just things that I was like, I just hate the idea of trying to go out and find a Daron as opposed to hearing from Daron. But we know we didn't have that option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think I said this before, but it's a couple of different points in the podcast, and this was probably the biggest one. We just were confronted with the least worst option. The best option would have been to have the audio from the trial, which I think we'll get into that later. But it didn't happen. Couldn't happen at that point in time. So that would have been the best option. So we weren't dealing with the best option world. Okay, so then what? And then, as you said earlier, okay, so then you try to read it, and then that sounds like you're doing story time, jumping back and forth.
Right.
And then, maybe another option could have been to just summarize more, and just do more of a straight narrative. But then you're losing, the cross-examination is almost like a tennis match, back and forth and back and forth. And it gets lost if you don't have 2 voices. So then, the option we were left with was, okay, then let's get people to read this. So then, that was kind of where we were left. So everything after that point was, we had considered every other possible option, and that's what we're going to do. And And we tried to I think we were upfront with the listener that, where we had to, condense things, because that's the thing, during a trial and long testimony, I always found them fascinating, but it develops its own sense of rhythm that's not, it's not attuned to a, 50-minute podcast. It goes on, and it becomes intoxicating in its own way, but it's a totally different rhythm. So I think we had to, we were honest with the listener about where we made, where we condensed, where we cut, and also even that, we're trying to capture some essence of the lawyers and of the people testifying, but we're not directing people to act out as if they were really them, because they weren't actors and we weren't directors. We were trying to be, with some fidelity, capture the essence of the proceedings, but with obvious limitations.
Yeah, and I think it helped obviously tremendously that you and I were both in the courtroom and saw how all of those people, like their demeanor, their energy, sort of how they spoke. So it wasn't dead on, but it was closer than if we had just read the transcripts. Do you think it worked?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think that, people who, there's kind of two different audiences for that. And one audience is very small, which is people who were actually in the trial, who actually saw it in real life, or who know those people. And that's actually a very small number of people comparatively. And then all the other listeners of the podcast have nothing to compare it to.
Yeah.
So I think if they felt like they understood what happened in that courtroom, then it's successful. If they feel like they were presented with presentation of what happened in that courtroom, and they felt like they understood what happened, then I think we were successful. Well, and I don't know, if someone who knows Laura Bach or knows Judy Pipe, right, or knows Daron Wint, to say, well, that's not what he sounds like. He wouldn't have said it like that,
Yeah. But at least we know he did say it. I mean, it was directly from the transcript, so we weren't adding in words they didn't say.
Yeah, and like you said, we weren't trying to, none of the people who were reading those lines are actors or trained actors by any means, but I actually liked that we did try and at least give, we weren't going over the top, we did try and give the essence of the person, versus I think, in some reenactments that you hear, wherever that may be, an audiobook, a podcast, I think they do play it straight, and it's almost, it just sounds like someone's reading, and it's very flat. And I liked that we tried to be, as authentic with it as possible. And again, without going overboard, without any acting skills. But I do think that added a little something to it that maybe was a little different than someone else would do it. And so I think that did work.
I also think we should mention that all of these people we found in the newsroom, they all worked around for WFED or WTOP. That FED is our sister station. So as far as they all had to be SAG-AFTRA members and all of that stuff. So that stuff was clear too. And most of them had a journalism background. So if they missed a word or whatever, we'd be like, nope, you got to start again. I mean, and they would understand there's no latitude here. There's no space for you to make it anything but what is said on the paper, other than tone and presentation. So
didn't you guys actually hear from, I think, at least one person that was involved in the trial that had listened to the podcast and thought that it was pretty authentic? Am I making that up?
Well, I think there's two things I remember. One, the longtime court spokeswoman, I think during the podcast, she reached out because we were featuring it on the homepage, and when new episodes came out on Mondays, I think it was, we would feature it on the homepage. And one week, the link was going to the old episode, and I think she reached out to say, "Where's the new episode?" So that would, to me, she didn't say anything about I like it, I don't like it, whatever. But the fact that she was like, "Where's the new episode?"
I knew they were listening. Yeah.
So that was kind of okay, there,
Well, later, Laura Bach told me that her mom was listening.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
And she did what happens to us, or at least happens to me all the time. The mom said, I don't know her name, I'm sorry, but she said, well, did you know that in the case against Daron Wint or whatever, they caught him because of DNA on a pizza, and Laura's like, "Yes, Mom, yes."
Oh, yeah.
I was aware of that detail as the lead prosecutor.
What I remember too is that maybe it was actually during the reenactments episode, which was just like, do you know that he said when he took the stand that he said, of course, and she was the one cross-examining him, so of course she knew what.
But it's funny when it's presented in a different way, and it's just, you never know what people are going to say. Well, I think that it was important to discuss sort of how that part took shape and came together. So thank you guys for breaking that down with me. This podcast was originally written and produced by Jack Moore and me, Megan Cloherty, with Julia Ziegler as our content advisor. I produced the new content for 22 Hours A Second Look. Music for this episode is Haters Hate by Ramon Messam, Cast of Pods by Doug Maxwell, and Spooker by Wayne Jones, both available in the YouTube audio library. Rhythmic Pulse by Daniel Birch, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 International. 22 Hours A Second Look is a production of the Gamut Podcasting Network.